Good evening. Welcome to the Jefferson County Board of Education meeting on Monday, February 27th, 2023. If you'd please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Vogel, I believe we have a couple student recognitions this evening.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate the opportunity to recognize these students. I firmly believe that we could probably have about 8,400 some students come through here and hear a caring educator talk about the amazing things that they do, because we have some really awesome kids and some really great teachers and coaches and directors. So taking a sampling again this evening, I'd like to call Lisa Hazlitt up, and she will be introducing Washington High School's members of the West Virginia All-State Band, the highest honor that a high school band can achieve. So, Ms. Hazlitt.
Hello, I'm Lisa Hazlitt. We're here with some students from Washington High School. There's some students, I'm not sure where to look, from Jefferson High School. One student who's earned a very high accolade in a lot of different ways is the student who's going to perform for you tonight. This is Jacob Perkowski. He's a senior. We're going to mention a little bit about his jazz accomplishments in a little bit, but he earned first chair on trumpet for the All-State Band. So he's going to play for you tonight, Entrada by Otto Ketting.
Really fantastic. Now, we can't have fanfare to start every Board of Education meeting, but I thought we should do it at least once while we had the opportunity. If I could invite all of the Washington High School members of the West Virginia All-State Honors Band to the stage. Come on up, going up. And I will give these to you to distribute to them. All right, and rather than just read your names and have you walk across, I thought we'd let you introduce yourselves real quick. Tell us what grade you're in and what instrument you play. No introduction needed, but let's go through it for the cameras back there.
I'm Jacob Perkowski. I'm a senior, and I play the trumpet.
And what was the name of that piece you played again?
Entrada by Otto Ketting.
That was awesome. Thank you very much. Ma'am?
I'm Lydia Brown. I'm a sophomore, and I play flute.
I'm Amelia Dardaros, and I'm a senior, and I play flute and piccolo.
I'm Rebecca McGivern, and I'm a 10th grader, and I play the trumpet.
Hi, my name is Rachel Wilson de Beerst. I am a junior, and I play the bass clarinet.
I'm Eric Brady. I'm a senior, and I play trumpet.
Fantastic. And I will let Ms. Hazlett talk more about the honor band and as I come back around. So round of applause.
So the West Virginia All-State Band is the highest honor to be placed into as an individual student musician. This award is truly theirs and theirs individually. We offered time after school. We offered some help and some literature, but they earned each of these placements themselves. I'd like to brag on them a little bit more just for a moment. So Eric Brady plays 13th chair. Rachel plays 3rd chair on bass clarinet, both of their first times auditioning for the group. Becky McGivern made All-State Band last year as a freshman. She made it again this year as a sophomore, and she made 2nd chair trumpet in the state. Jacob Perkowski made it last year, 2nd chair last year, 1st chair this year. Lydia Brown is a sophomore, and she made the group last year. I don't remember what chair. 5th chair. She's 1st chair this year as a sophomore in the All-State Band. And Amelia has made the band all 4 years of high school, and this year she is the only piccolo player that was selected for the group. So we have a lot of talent at Washington, and we are very proud of you. Congratulations.
Any parents in the audience, fans, autograph seekers, come on up. This is your photo op. All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to continue in our musical trend this evening. And I would ask all of the members of the Washington High School Region 9 Honors Band to come onto the stage while Ms. Hazlett speaks a few words about that. So, Washington High School Region 9 Honors Band members. And this is a lot of sports and other events going on right now. So, not all the students will be here from all of these groups, but we certainly want to recognize them and pay tribute to their hard work.
So you'll see a few familiar faces here. So the top 10% of the schools in the region, the band directors are able to nominate students to be part of a region honor band. So we don't have to travel too far. This year it was at Martinsburg High School. And not everyone's here due to illness or jobs or other commitments. But we have Lydia Brown on flute, Joshua Molina on alto sax, Nathan Trimmer on alto sax, Rhett Snyder on trombone, Benjamin Kaltreiter on, did you do Barry sax? Barry sax, William Carr on percussion, Nick Sokol on trombone, Madison Levine on percussion, Anna Sedlock on percussion, Rachel Wilson de Beers on bass clarinet, Jude Sumner on alto, Rebecca McGivern on trumpet, Eric Carr on tuba, and Zoe Swire on clarinet. So hats off to these students.
Thank you very much. And again, photo ops here for anyone who'd like to come up and get the group on stage. We can do that real quick. All right, round of applause for these students. Jefferson High School also has members of the Region 9 Honor Band. I'd like to invite Director J.P. Lynch to come forward and talk a little bit about that as we recognize the students over at Jefferson High School who are also musically inclined and dedicated to their craft.
Thanks for having us tonight, and just to piggyback on what Ms. Hazlett said, it's a great event. I think the best thing about the event is that our top musicians get to play with other top musicians from the other schools. And this year we had Dr. Mark McCoy as our director, who was at Shepherd for years and an amazing conductor, and all of our students got to experience that knowledge that he was able to impart on our students. And like Washington, we had quite a few students. Some of them aren't here tonight because it's the first day of spring sports and everything else that's going on. So the students that we had from Jefferson were Ashton Klein, Ellie Kemp, so please come forward when your name's called, Alex Payton, Zachary Brown, Keegan Adams, Nick Crywin, Jalen Anderson, Atlas Batista, George Sutherland, Joss Poteet, Juliet Wells, Richard Friends, Andrew Orley, Rowan Davis, and A.J. Spears.
I'll have to ask you to hand those out later. All right, again, if anyone would like to come and have a photo opportunity. Song requests, we'll wait till another time, but we're working on that. All right, hold up the certificates for everybody so they can get a photo, and round of applause for these wonderful artists. Thank you very, very much. Everyone get it? All right, great. Thank you, guys. We're going to shift over to athletics now. We had a really, really exciting swim season at both high schools, and I was hoping it would rain a little bit more so we could give you demonstrations, but it hasn't happened yet. Careful what you wish for, I know, knock on wood. I would like to invite Jefferson High School swim coach Kimberly Orr to come forward. And we can introduce the swimmers. If you'll read their names, I'll hand their certificates out, and then we'll take a picture.
All right, so this is a building year for my girls, so I only qualified 5 girls, but if my boys would come up first, and then any girls that are here. So I have Zach Valtzgraf, Luke Vines, Augustine Hall. I can't even see. I don't have my glasses on. Logue Shriver. Matt Valtzgraf's right there. And my all-star. Nick Lugo, Chris Robbins. Do I have my girls here? Brittany, Haley, and Sydney. I'm sorry. Sydney Britton, Riley Connor, Sydney Kader. And again, I'm missing a lot of them due to sports. The thing with swimming is only you have your prelims, and then only the top 12 get to swim the next day for finals. The top 6 are the medals and plaque winners. Even if my relay team, which they did, they came in 7th, but they beat the 6th place person, but they weren't allowed to move up. That's the way the state does. So let's give it a round of applause for them. And Nick Lugo, step forward a little bit. I'm going to brag on him a little bit. I had him when he was a freshman. He made it to states. He medaled. And he was our first place winner in the fly and my second place winner in the 200 free. Chris Robbins is my freshman. He exceeded my expectations. He, at first, was like, I don't know about this kid. But as we went on, he went from a 115 and 100 free to down to like 53. So, round of applause. Thank you, guys. And my relay team, I have a couple of them. So, my medley, and then my 200 and 400 free. So, they did really well this season. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, this is like that sports photo. We got some folks in the back too, guys. Don't move too much. Okay, is that it? We good? All right, thank you all very, very much. And swimming is one of those individual team sports. I'd like to invite Lily Simmons, the swim coach at Washington High School. Didn't see Lily when I came in. Is Lily Simmons here? Do we have any swimmers from Washington High School? Okay. We will make sure that they get their certificates as well. And last but certainly not least, not only do we have scholars, artists, and athletes among our students at Jefferson County, we also have philanthropists. If I could invite Keena White and Trina Bartlett to come up and talk about a recent contribution from the Capital District Division 8B Key Club here in Jefferson County and a difference they made on the Boys and Girls Club of the Eastern Panhandle. Students can go ahead and come up on stage, and I'll let these ladies talk a little bit about the accomplishments. So a round of applause as they come up.
Hi guys, I'm Keena White with Washington High School's Key Club, and with me is Jenny with the Carranzas, and Katina from Boys and Girls Club, and Mr. Thomas from Jefferson High School's Key Club, and Miss Notch from the Carranzas as well. Behind us is just some of our wonderful students from Jefferson and Washington High School's Key Club, and they did an amazing job this year. Miss Kayla Holman is our Lieutenant Governor for Key Club, and she raised $5,900 for the Boys and Girls Club. Katina, want to tell us a little bit what that money's going to go towards?
Sure. So the Boys and Girls Club of the Eastern Panhandle, if you're not familiar, has 3 different clubs, and one of them is specifically for Jefferson County students. And we have an amazing relationship with the Board of Education to support the work we do after school and then also in the summer. And we serve children ages 6 to 18. Most of them are the younger kids in Jefferson County right now. We're trying to rebuild our teen program. But the cost for a family to send a child to the Boys and Girls Club is $15 a month, which equals $135 a year for the after-school program. The actual cost of attending the Boys and Girls Club that we incur is about $2,800. So there's a huge difference there. And we really depend on the generosity of the community to help support those kids who really need a safe place after school where they can learn academically as well as socially as well as character development. And thank you so much to the Key Club for holding the snowball to help fill that gap. It truly makes a big difference.
Kayla was ahead of the project, so I'm going to hand this off to her to explain a little bit about it.
Hi, my name is Kayla Holloman, and the snowball was my divisional project. My goal for this project was to benefit many people at once, and the best thing to do that was to have a charity winter formal. We worked on it for a couple of months, and I worked with all these people who are behind me. And we ended up raising $5,900 for the Boys and Girls Club. So, thank you.
Thank you all very much. This is a photo opportunity for anyone who wants a clear shot. I think I counted all the flashes. Okay, excellent. Hey, thank you all so very much, and we hope to welcome you back again soon. Round of applause. And ladies and gentlemen on the board, that concludes our student recognition for this evening. We'll be back again next month.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Deputy Superintendent of Operations update, Ms. Joyce White.
Good evening. I have a happy item to discuss with you as my first order of my update. The historical section was completed on February 17th. We've been cleaning and moving, and today was the students' first day back in their newly renovated, safe Harpers Ferry historical section. So we're pleased to get them back in. Everybody worked hard, the project went smoothly, and I'm just happy the students are back in their school. Narcan is now available for nurses to have on hand in each of our schools. The nurses went through a Narcan training on December 21st and 22nd with the WVDHHR. They provided storage for the Narcan at each school, and a one-time use mask barrier kit is being provided free of cost, as well as an ambu bag. So we're happy to have that resource in our schools should we need it. The sound system installation, I know we had a question last time about timeline. So DSLR vendor has stated that the installation will occur within a 6 to 8 week window, and we anticipate the completion of that project by spring break. Jason is going to put up the CEFP annual update form. I would like to update you about the annual CEFP. We update it every year by December 1st. And thanks to the board and their decision-making, wise decision-making about projects and ranking those projects, we have updated it with some completions. And with the support of Jefferson County voters and our bond project, we're working our way down quite a costly list. So we appreciate everyone coming together in support of our students in Jefferson County. The first project, and I'm just going to go over completed projects, you have that before you, is the Washington High turf field and track repairs. That's listed as completed, as well as the sod fields at Wildwood Middle School and the turf field track repairs at Jefferson High School. At Blue Ridge Elementary, we repaired a roof. The same at Shepherdstown Middle. South Jefferson, Wright Denny had partial roof replacements. And we have item number 8, which we'll discuss later, the new Ranson Elementary School. That's on our CEFP as well as Shepherdstown. And we have several more items that are on the list. I want to highlight one, Charlestown Middle School, football bleachers. We've completed track repairs, but we're looking, and the outdoor bleachers, that was completed. We're now looking and have found a funding source for indoor bleachers. T.A. Lowry Elementary School, we completed some roof work there. And we have on our list roof replacement for Page. That'll not occur till 26-27 is our estimate, as well as C.W. Shipley. And North Jefferson will need some HVAC. Harpers Ferry Middle School will need some minor renovations, as would Driswood. This is a 10-year plan, so you'll see things projected out till 2029. Also, at the last meeting, I'll remind you that we voted to add a wing to Jefferson High School for the ROTC, which benefits both high schools. As part of my update, we're always vigilant in the school system about cybersecurity, and these days, ransomware attacks are no joke. We have an absolutely phenomenal technology team that we have put together, led by Dr. Jen Rowan, Director of Technology. The tech team is with us this evening to talk a little bit about how we handle cybersecurity here in Jefferson County Schools. And I do want to note that there is a cybersecurity team. It has been in place since 2019, and I'm going to let them share what they can with you about their work. So I'm going to turn my update over to Dr. Rowan and thank her team for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We are very excited to be here, very honored to be asked to come and talk to you guys tonight about our cybersecurity. So in 2019, Jefferson County Schools started its first cybersecurity team. Historically, in the K-12 sector, there wasn't and isn't a focus on cybersecurity, mainly because there's just, in the K-12 public school systems, there's just a lack of resources to provide adequate coverage. However, there were trends that were coming in, and I could see that different schools, not only in West Virginia, but across the nation, were having attacks happening at the K-12 level. And we needed some protection other than just having our cybersecurity insurance. So at the beginning of our journey, we were at square one. I think it was Mike and I, and we sat across the table from each other and we're like, now what? We had it on our calendar, but now what are we gonna do? And so those are my favorite types of teams to be on because we grow together, we learn together, and we adjust as needed. So what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity can be defined as the practice of protecting critical systems and sensitive information from digital attacks. And when you think of the word hacker, so this is the second slide, Jason, sorry. When you think of the word hacker, you might think of a young man in a hoodie in the basement or a garage somewhere in anywhere USA or another country, but that's just not the reality anymore. The reality is that there are people in the world that are going to work and they're hackers. They look completely like they're out in the world going to the grocery store. Their work is just different than ours. It just has a different reason behind it, intention. And so you kind of have two teams. You have the people who are fighting against it, or the ethical hackers, and those who are trying to get money from different companies, or there's all different reasons why people would hack different companies or schools. So, therefore, cybersecurity is a defense against malware, supply chain issues, network and software attacks. And some of those attacks do not really even include a computer. It could be secure entryways, where someone is tailgating or piggybacking and going into different areas unauthorized. So that's considered what's called social engineering, when people act a certain way to get information based on if you're likable or there's consensus. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. And these are real examples. So go ahead, next slide, please. These are real examples that I got in the last 2 weeks. Okay, I normally get them daily. And it's just not me. These are our staff members have shared this with me. So I'm going to show you a series of these. These are called phishing attacks. Phishing attacks happen on email, which means that they try to gain access to either credentials or like your username and password, or they try to gain access to knowledge, personally identifiable information, or what we call PPI, or PII, sorry. So in this case, you can see, go ahead and go back to the other slide, please, that they're using a SharePoint web application platform. That's the words that you use when you're using a Microsoft 365 cloud document. So a teacher might look at that and say, oh, I can click on this. This is something that's shared with me. Or if you take a look at the next one, that's OneDrive document there. It's not real, but they're getting more and more real. In fact, this next one has a disclaimer that says this is only for the people that have been emailed specifically. So they might make potential victims feel worried about forwarding it or telling others about it. So this next example is a request for information. This one was very difficult. I actually had to contact special services because they have assessments that look very much like this. When this was given to me, and I said, well, let me double check on this one to see if it's real or not. And it was a hoax. So the teacher turned this into me, and I contacted Mr. Wink. He said it's a hoax, and then I had to contact the teacher. That's how they're getting better and better and more complex. So it's really important that we have these lines of defense, not only in a technical sense, but also in a training sense. So our people are our best defense, our staff. And you can also notice this is on Valentine's Day. A lot of times phishing happens, or whaling they call it, will happen during a holiday because there's less personnel in the technology office and people know. My favorite one was on Christmas Eve one year. That was really fun. That they know when the more vulnerable times are. So in general, go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you so much. Our best defense is our staff. And all these emails, like I said, were turned into me to request if they were real or false. We train staff at the beginning of the school year through an onboarding video. We collaborate with the communications department. They put together a wonderful package for everybody at the beginning of the year. And then anytime somebody is onboarded, they have to watch that video at the beginning of their employment. And then when we are knowledgeable about a widespread attack, then we collaborate with the communication department to put an email out to alert, tech alert. You can see on the slide that there are, it's the ransomware attacks or different attacks are of course increasing, especially after the pandemic. And in general, people in education are extremely helpful. That is our nature. I've never met a teacher that I've said I had a problem and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to walk the other way. No, everybody in education, for the most part, have this really great heart that they want to help. So if they get an email saying, I really need help on something, then they might be, unless we have this training and they all get it and they're very, very good, then they might fall victim to one of these attacks. On the next slide, we have examples of different attacks all throughout the all across America: Chicago Public Schools, Winthrop Public Schools in Massachusetts, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and Connecticut. All of these have either ransomware or denial of service. So let me talk a little bit about what that is. A ransomware attack happens when an attacker virtually connects to a network or a machine host and encrypts files with PII information, which means maybe your names, your addresses, your social security numbers, your student number. It can be any of that information, health information, PHI is what it's called. And demands money for a private key. And if you don't get that money, then they might release the information. They might release the information on a timetable. Every 3 hours, we're going to release 10 records on the dark web until you give it to us. Or they might release it all at one time. Or you pay the ransom and you get that, and you just hope that their business model is such that they do not attack you again. So the second one is denial of service. A denial of service attack happens when the system is sent too much information and it overloads all of our systems, and our systems just shut right down. So that is a denial of service attack. Right now, the more popular attacks are the ransomware attacks that are happening across the nation, but denial of service happened a little bit before. So as one can imagine, this can happen more than desired, and our neighbors in both Morgan and Berkeley County have been victims of the attacks recently, so it's hitting closer and closer to home. And every system, even Amazon, who has all the resources in the whole world, has weaknesses. Even having a cybersecurity team does not completely negate our vulnerabilities, but it's important that we have this defense. In fact, if I were to equate the cybersecurity team to anything in our physical world, so a lot of times I'll take something in our virtual world and put it into our physical world, it would be fire education and firefighters, hands down. Because if you think about it with me, from a tiny age, we're taught how to stop, drop, and roll. We're taught how to create a fire plan, what to do if the fire drill rings in the school. We have alarm systems and detectors in place in case of any type of emergency. And we have built entire buildings where you have emergency exits and you know where to go in case of a fire. And then if we do get a fire, who comes to rescue us? It's the firefighters who try to contain the fire and mitigate damage before it even begins. So cybersecurity teams and professionals are very much like that, where we have to focus on training at a young age all the way up until you're employed. Technical controls, such as what's called sensors or logs. And then we have a response and recovery plan in case of an attack to minimize or contain that damage. So let me tell you a little bit about my team. That's one of my favorite parts, is to brag on my team. This is a cybersecurity team, so this is an offshoot of the technology department. We meet bi-weekly, and I have Mr. Navarro Wheats, has studied and worked in IT for the last 2 years. During his training, he assisted a company in recovery of ransomware attack and is certified in Security Plus. He's an integral part of our team. Mr. Carroll. Mr. Carroll has been on the Jefferson IT team for 6 years. He started his career as a technician organizing inventory and working with students and staff from our highest enrolled schools. Recently, he's become the systems administrator who ensures the functionality of our infrastructure and secures data backups for the school district. Mr. Chapman. Mr. Chapman holds 6 industry certifications, including Security Plus, Cybersecurity Analyst Plus, Certified Ethical Hacker. In addition, he has earned his master's degree in cybersecurity over the last year, and he acts as a key member of our team regarding incident response and disaster recovery. Mr. Buber. Mr. Buber is a retired sergeant of 29 years from the Eastern Panhandle. He spent the last 12 years in the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit, where he served the digital forensic analyst. This has prepared him to handle our filtering systems and review any nefarious activities that are flagged within our system. Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis has worked in the school system for 12 years as our sole network architect, who is responsible for the internet connectivity, phones, Wi-Fi, security cameras, and E-rate funding. As an Air Force veteran, he worked with classified information and contributed to nuclear deterrence as an intercontinental ballistic missile launch officer. Currently, he ensures safety and security within the network infrastructure. And lastly, Ms. White. Ms. White is our Deputy Superintendent of Operations, who has worked in safety and security for the past 12 years. She has regularly contributed to our team, and she is the communicator to the district leadership should an event occur. In her past, she was a safety director for Morgan County Schools and has worked with Homeland Security and first responders as needed on a cooperative basis. We also do invite guests out to our meetings. In fact, one of our community members reached out to me. He has a kindergarten student here, and he is a gentleman who focuses on cybersecurity in the federal government. So anytime we have people from the community who have that type of skill set, we will invite them in and say, let's talk about it. What's your experience? And how can we make our posture even better? We do have specific objectives to cybersecurity. Go ahead, next slide, please. Thank you. Maintain up-to-date information regarding cybersecurity. It is ever-changing, just like every aspect of technology. We review the national standards for cybersecurity together, reviewed others trying to circumvent the network. That does happen quite a bit. We are working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and they do try to circumvent us, and we try to make sure they learn not to do that. Complete training exercises such as tabletop games. Collaborate with the communication team for policies video. Send out alerts as needed. Assist those who have been a victim of a phishing attack, maybe by changing their password. Assist the JCS security team, and write and review a disaster recovery plan and incident recovery plan annually. So as a team, we've developed these objectives to stay knowledgeable about cybersecurity. And then when an event occurs, we have debriefing sessions to determine what we did well, what areas we can do better, and what we need to do to adjust for even better protection. So our current focus, so whenever we find that somebody around us has been attacked, we do what's called shields up. And this was our current focus, and mostly derived from Mr. Chapman's work. He's doing a lot of the manual labor on this, is threat hunting. Again, that's manual review of our systems. Reducing our attack surface. So that's what we call when we have like all of our infrastructure, we think of ways to reduce that, like harden our servers and things like that. Creating new cybersecurity infrastructure and increased vulnerability scans so we can see what vulnerabilities that we have so we can patch them. All right, well that is a little bit about the cybersecurity team. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that comprehensive explanation. I was wondering, is Mr. Buber the same Mr. Buber that does investigations of staff?
So Mr. Buber helps us out. I can only speak about the cybersecurity part of it, and for us, one of the things we have to keep our pulse on is what are the trends of student search activity, and like what are some type of alerts that they may be having. So let's say a student looks up pornographic material.
That's okay. I wasn't asking that.
Okay.
I'm just wanting to know if this is the same person that does private investigations.
Yes.
So whether they're related to cybersecurity or not, this is the Mr.
He just sits on the team. Yes. He does his job, but as part of his job, we have crafted him over to sit on the cyber security team for his knowledge. The team is very well-rounded, and each of us brings a skill set to it. So he enhances the team very much and lends us about an hour biweekly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry,
And
thank you.
she failed to list something on her credential because she was busy introducing
Oh.
everybody else. Now, she has not revealed this to me yet, but I'm going to ask her to talk to you a little bit about what she studied hard to earn over the weekend. So she's certified in something I would like her to share with you now.
Thank you so much. Well, yeah, I just got certified in Security Plus, and it's because of these people here who have inspired me. When I came into educational technology, it's all about creation and thinking about how the best way kids are going to learn. Now it's becoming a little different. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to go to school. I went to school at Blue Ridge Community College at night for the last few weeks, and they inspired me to try to get my Security Plus certification. So I appreciate it. They would try to give me some questions and get me up to speed. So thankfully, yes, I was successful. So thank you, Ms. White.
And I just want to brag on all of these gentlemen because they're very low-key. Anytime you see them, they're low-key, even in an emergency. I've never seen them excited, and they do their jobs so very, very well. It's one of the jobs that you can't see, but the jobs are crucial to keeping our students and staff safe online. So we appreciate them very much. Thank you for being with us. If there are no other questions, that concludes our update for this evening.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held February 13th, 2023, and the special board meeting held February 20th, 23?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Any questions or discussion?
A comment, I guess, about the 20th. I did not agree to go into executive. I didn't hear, there was a lot of chaos and confusion. I didn't hear a motion or the request to, does anybody disagree? I would have disagreed to go into executive. I did inform Janet, but Ms. Harner, that I did not agree, but apparently you can't change that because I didn't verbalize it, but I just want it to be known that I definitely did not agree with that whole decision to go into executive. So that's all.
But that was not your vote at the time, so the minutes stand as they are. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Oppose.
Thank you. All right, next we have citizens' comments. Our first one is online. It's Ms. Bobby Block, followed by Mr. George Rutherford. Ms. Block, can you hear us? Ms. Block, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I am grateful to be able to testify before you tonight. We need to get and act responsible and prevent the toxic catastrophe. Praying you find the courage to move forward to help protect the children. Watching the environmental disaster in eastern Palestine, Ohio, I am witnessing that the hopes of a community have been turned upside down because of toxic behavior and greed of corporations and regulatory inaction. There are times feeling we have been hit by a train that is at the station, defying us to challenge its toxic behavior. Together we can all move on with the blessings of the Golden Rule. In the spirit of helping us deal with a train wreck in Jefferson County, sharing critical points worthy noting and taking positive action. First, we cannot deny that the challenges of PFAS, forever chemicals, can be denied. And it places us, and especially the children, at risk. The fact that Rockwell intimidates individuals to agree to signing off and in turn ignoring toxic behavior is not worth the paper it's written on. In those in service and caring for our children, it's negligent to sign such papers. Environmental activists helping those in Ohio have warned, don't sign anything. Second, there is a confluence of persons coming together in a bipartisan manner to acknowledge and stop the spread of PFAS. Senators Manchin and Capito introduced legislation in the U.S. Capitol, and the West Virginia State Senators Evan Hansen and Patricia Rucker are sponsoring SB 485, which is designed to protect the integrity of our water, air, and environment. Also glad to report that the Jefferson County Foundation has reached an agreement with Rockwell to improve the handling of its stormwater systems. Given courage, you can introduce a policy which implements action to help ensure that the agreement is honored, as well as identifying PFAS and obtain the necessary assistance to mitigate the toxins. As you are aware, that policy is the Human Health Risk Assessment. Third, following up on the
Thank you very much, Ms.
synchronistic.
Block. I'm sorry, your time's up. Just a reminder that all speakers are limited to 3 minutes and are prohibited from making negative or derogatory comments using a name or position by which an individual can be identified. Next up, we have Mr. George Rutherford, followed by Jennifer Backus.
Hear me now? Oh, good evening. I'm George Rutherford, President of the Jefferson County Board of Jefferson County NAACP. To the Jefferson County, West Virginia Board of Education. The Jefferson County NAACP understand that Superintendent Dr. Gibson Learn is retiring, and you will be searching for a replacement. First, the NAACP wants to thank Dr. Gibson for all she has done to improve the county school system since she has been here. Education management has been under attack all over the country in the past 5+ years, and we have also felt those attacks here in Jefferson County. We were very fortunate to have a superintendent that could cope with most of these attacks. Second, we are concerned about the recruitment process for the replacement of the vacancy. Years ago, it was easy to fill a superintendent position because the external, local, and national political pressure was not relevant as it is today. A bad hire replacement can cost the board money. The answer to avoiding a bad hire replacement is to find the right person in the beginning. The Jefferson County NAACP strongly recommend that you hire an outside search firm to find the type of candidate that are needed for this position. Hopefully you can find a search firm that has a singular focus, which is identifying leadership in education. Money should not be the main feature in the cause of hiring a search firm. We need to do what is best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Jennifer Backus.
My issue seems so trivial now. Since December, our bus transportation's had some major issues. Beginning in December, there was a period of around 2 weeks where my son's bus just didn't show up. It was below freezing outside in the morning and there was no bus. There were 4 days over the span of 2 weeks where I drove my son to school and I picked up other stragglers from our department or from our development so that they wouldn't freeze. In the last 4 weeks, the number of times my son has had to either catch a ride home from a friend or call me to come get him from school at the end of the day has outnumbered the days where his bus has shown up and he's come home like normal. I don't blame his bus driver, Miss Norma. I blame the school system not adequately staffing the buses and routes. I don't want to see our county go to the same direction that Berkeley County did in sending out notices that buses just weren't coming at all and that those kids weren't going to school that day. For a school system that sends out nastygrams threatening truancy court for missing school and harps on the importance of attendance, I'd like to think that transporting those kids to and from school would be a higher priority.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. Ms. Loring, are there any changes to the consent agenda?
Good evening. No, there are no changes to this evening's consent agenda.
Are we allowed to remove one permanently? Number 22. She's looking to see which one it is.
I know. she really is.
All right, hearing no changes to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, including number 22?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any discussion?
And comments. I looked through the bills purchase order. I don't see, and maybe it's there, but these attorney fees, I'm concerned that some board employees are accessing the attorney individually and the rest of the board is left with taking the word of this other board member. I'm concerned that we are overusing these attorneys. I don't know if they are paid hourly. I think we have 2 attorneys. It's not clear. I believe that before a board member accesses attorneys on their own, the rest of the board should be privy to the information, number one, but they should also be in agreement because we're spending a lot of money. And so is it on here anywhere? If not, when will it be and under which name would I find it on this bills and purchases? That's my first question. Who would know that?
So any attorney that we employ is a member of the firm, and those checks are written to the firm, and those are all included in our financial statements. You can go on there and do a search dependent on the name of the firm that the attorney is with, and we can give the board a list of every attorney firm we've ever used, if that's what you'd like.
I'm just asking about currently, which attorneys, is it just the one firm? And all these different attorneys are from the one firm? Is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am, that is
I
not
just
what I'm
don't,
saying.
how do board members know which attorneys are being used? I mean, I understand there was an attorney consulted about doing a search for the headhunters or recruiters, whatever you call those. There was attorneys consulted about the grading policy. I wasn't privy to this information. So that's one thing I believe all board members ought to be if we are paying for this service, but I don't even know which attorneys they are. So how does the board know this? Because I don't want to keep paying for somebody's that contacts an attorney at a whim. You know, we should be agreeing as a board to consult attorneys for these things. So I just, that's one issue I have with this consent agenda. The other issue is D, action to elect to have an annual financial statements performed by a certified public accountant approved by the chief financial officer. So has this always, so you've always consulted outside to have?
There is a requirement that school systems have an audit by an outside independent agency, and we have that conducted annually. We have a contract for those, and the request is for the board to approve the contract for the chief financial officer to select. We've used the same firm for years, and it is a requirement of the West Virginia Department of Education. It's just like any other organization that spends millions of dollars. We have someone on the outside come through and audit us and prepare an audit report. The board gets a copy of that audit report annually. It is also placed on our website so that any member of the public can review it as well.
Okay, so you're saying this D is just to do the regular annual audit, and that I suppose they request a 3-year contract?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did this have to do with the CFO? I didn't catch that part.
It's just the requirement that the CFO approves the party. Like, they're responsible for ensuring that they meet the state's requirements.
Okay. I think those are all of my questions.
Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda?
I would just say thank you to Janet for, I know we get to keep you for a little bit longer, but thank you for all the loving care you've given us and the great job you've done taking care of us and making all of our arrangements and setting our stuff up and making sure we have everything we need. And it's been a pleasure to have worked with you for so long, and you will be greatly missed.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oppose.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have unfinished business, 12A, possible action on high school semester exams.
Yes, ma'am. So the board placed out for public comment consideration to return the semester exam to 10% of the semester grade. That was placed out for public comment. The board's been given copies of those public comments. In reviewing those, of the comments, 51% of those comments agreed with 10%. Another 9% felt that it should be more than 10%, either a 14% or a 25%. There were different ones. 1/3, 33%, felt like it should be kept at the current level, and 7% felt like the board should wait until the recommendation of the semester exam committee before making a decision. So with regard to that final comment, I will say, after having had discussion with the high school principals and with technology, I do not believe it is feasible for the board to wait to make the decision until after the committee has done their work. Their first meeting is scheduled for Monday, March the 20th. The high school staff, the teachers have an enormous amount of work to do to prepare semester exams. The high school principals have to prepare their schedules in terms of when they find out whether or not kids have passed their classes, whether or not they need to be placed back into classes. From the perspective of technology, we have to set up our Canvas grading system with how much each the grades are worth for the semester, and if a semester exam plays into those. So there's a number of decisions to be made, and it affects a number of different things. So whatever decision the board embarks on, that decision needs to be made for this school year, and any recommendations of the advisory committee to be for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you.
Are you waiting for a motion or something?
Or discussion or?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve this policy.
I would second that.
And that would raise it, when you say approve this policy, you mean make the policy 10%?
Yeah, that's what the policy says here, the one that's listed, we are discussing.
Okay.
It shows 10%.
And Ms. Bratton, you seconded that? Okay. Any discussion?
I agree that with the 10%. I also agree that we need this policy for this semester and not change it from the advisory committee's results. That change needs to come for next year.
My only comments would be is trying to understand if we do that, does that affect seniors? Is that part of the policy that seniors are exempt from the exam? My other concern would be that when exams were given last time, we had one high school that allowed a block schedule and an hour and a half to take that exam, which would allow for a lot more content to be tested. Another high school did just the regular exam schedule and the regular non-block schedule, which only allowed for 45 minutes of content. So I also do not feel like those high schools are fair and equitable if we're not doing them the same. We're also not testing kids the same, so we're not going to get the same data back from it. So I think if you're going to make an exam that is going to take up 2 weeks worth of instruction time to be able to try to study and go over that and prep and do the study guides and all the things we're going to ask for teachers to do, that we need to also have some other boundaries that are at least agreed upon to make it fair for students. So I'm not quite sure what the answers are to that. I was excited that maybe that would also be a part of the discussion for the group working together, but that's not going to help us if we're actually going to change this policy right now. It's going to affect students. So I think we need some answers to those questions. How it affects seniors, and how are we going to test students if we're going to make it worth 10% of their grade? What's fair, a 45-minute test or an hour-and-a-half test?
So the board can certainly, you have the authority to set parameters. If you wish to set some parameter regarding senior exemption, or you wish to set a parameter that the schools will either be on the 7-period or the block schedule, you have the legal authority to set those. If you're concerned about there being equitable opportunities, you know, you can simply set that both high schools will give the same amount of time for exams, and then let them both work it out as to whether or not they're going to do a 7-period or they're going to do a block. If your interest is in equity, which I completely understand because you're the ones that get complaints if they have one kid at this school who gets an hour and a half and one kid at this school that gets 45 minutes. I understand. Again, to the extent that we can give the educational professionals that we pay for their expertise the authority to do their jobs within equity parameters. So if your equity is you guys need to have the same testing schedule to the extent the kids get the same amount of time for the test, then set that as one of your parameters and let the two principals work together and figure that out.
Well, I mean, they're not taking the same exam, so
No, they're not.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the department chairs, they approve it, they understand how many questions are involved, how long the exam takes. We also have, it's in the policy already that hasn't been a question about seniors. If they have at least a 90%, 8 days prior to graduation, they don't have to take the exam. So that's already in the policy.
And there was no proposed change to that. Again, simply conveying that you have the authority, if you wish, to set additional parameters on that. Dr. Joy is correct in that they set the content for those tests. So whether you give them an hour and a half or whether you give them 45 minutes or whether you tell them 30 minutes, they're going to fit the content to the best of their professional judgment to that time period. If what you're conveying is for equity's sake, you want them to have the same amount of time to show their knowledge, again, that's a decision of the board.
That was where my concern is, that if you are testing a child's content and you have an hour and a half worth of content, that's a lot more to have to memorize and know than 45 minutes worth of content. Whether it's the same exam or not the same exam, it's still the same thought process, that it would be a more rigorous exam if it was an hour and a half worth of content to memorize than it would be for 45 minutes worth of content. So I was just asking for, the same parameters at both. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to the students. And then if the policy actually says that their grade has to be an 80 or above, is that what it was, or 90 or above, within 8 days, then does that mean you can't test them before 8 days before they graduate? Because how are you going to know what their grade is to be able to take the test if you're giving them the exam 14 days before graduation, but the policy says they have to have a 90 or above 8 days before graduation? I'm not sure the policy makes sense in that standpoint. So we'd have to look at that part as well.
Well, again, I believe that Ms. Marcus, who has she's probably forgotten more about high schools than I've ever known. She is more than capable of conveying how that would work in the actual setting. So I'm going to turn it over to the woman who knows far more than I. So.
Well, I appreciate that confidence. 8 days prior, they will know their grade and be able to say, yes, you're exempt. No, unfortunately, you are not.
So all the exams will be given after less than 8 days?
They'll be given after that 8 days.
Okay.
Yes. So Mrs. Group and I have been talking. Unfortunately, gosh bless the elementary schools, they've already set some visits here for our graduates, so we'll work with this schedule as well. And she and I have been talking, and we may, we're just going to be as flexible as we can with children, and we want them to have this glorious celebration at their elementary schools, because Mr. Walters already set the standard. He's having juice and donuts, so everybody else is going to have some juice and donuts. But we'll work together and get this figured out. But the 8 days prior to graduation, that lets kids know, yes, you have to study. No, you don't, or vice versa.
What do you feel as far as the block scheduling or not block scheduling? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, remember back when we went to, you could do a chapter little test or you could do something else. If you were only given a chapter test at the semester, it wasn't going to take you more than 45 minutes. So Mary Beth had already announced it over there, and certainly we were not going to condemn her, and we would never do that. And she didn't condemn us either. I believe the hour and a half is too long at this point in time because we haven't given them a test like that at this school. So I would be opposed to that, but I would certainly be cooperative to set the limit. But as I said, our kids haven't been exposed to that length of a test.
And and they still do have the flexibility in that policy, am I right, to give a chapter test as their final exam?
Well, that's not
a cumulative exam.
That's not what the policy actually says. But teachers, we do review those tests. We do go over them. And if you think about it, a math concept, maybe you have 3 questions for that concept, but in a 45-minute period, you're going to have 1 question on that concept. And you've still demonstrated whether the child knows the concept or not, whether you have 1 question or 3 questions.
Right, no, I'm in total agreement with you. I completely agree. I don't think you need longer than that. I just think it needs to be a little bit more fair and equitable. Or, hey, you take 45 minutes, you can still do a block scheduling, but you get a 45-minute exam worth of
Yeah.
content.
Well, we've done, like I said, Mary Beth and I will certainly work together on that, and have input from our teachers and our staff, and have it on as a question this week that we talk about in our leadership meeting. And we'll put that on the agenda. Does that help?
And the way I remember it is cumulative, but it could be either an exam or a project. I think
Yes.
that's
Yes.
maybe what you're thinking.
Most people, I would say CTE is more likely to give a project than anyone else. For example, in our nutrition class, they may bake a cake. They may make some nice cookies. But in Ms. Fable's class, for example, she may, in her digital imaging, she may simply have them pull up their computers of the project they've been working on for a week, and she'll go around and grade it as they sit there. And she gives them feedback and allows them to make adjustments to their projects. It's a little bit different depending on department. I feel that they've all been fair in the past. They've all been good tests. And also, what I find is that if I teach English 11 and Dr. Gibson Learn teaches English 11, our tests will be very, very similar. We might have the same reading passages and the same requirement to write the essay. And I think that gives you good consistency, that if your grade in English 11 and her grade in English 11 are based upon the same test or same assessment.
I agree.
Does that help? Thank you. Thank you for giving me opportunity. Thank you.
I think it also helps that now every student took an exam in December. Is that correct? Mrs. Marcus? Mrs. Marcus? That's okay. I just want to confirm that every student did take an exam in December, so they at least have had the practice of taking an exam.
Well, I was going to say every student had an opportunity. To take the semester assessment. However, some students chose not to because they realized it would not impact their grade one way or the other. That time of year is a very big travel season for us, and Disney is very attractive, and some students just simply chose not to make them up.
And I am hoping that my son is not listening to Ms. Marcus right now, because that was not a choice he was given.
No,
So.
no, they were not, but you couldn't force them. Lead the horse.
I know of one young man who took every one of his semester exams here, at least one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, but I mean, every child has at least had
Yes,
the
ma'am.
opportunity to take an exam.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I remember after those exams, 10% of the kids would have dropped a letter grade from the result of the exam.
10% of the grades would have dropped, yes, ma'am.
Right, yes. Okay. So right now.
My question would be, isn't this the same, it's the same policy, same everything as when you wanted it at 3%, so nothing has changed except for it's 10%, right? So there was no issues at 3%, so.
No, but I mean, I personally feel at this point we need to just let the committee do their work. I mean, that we've given them, but I mean, if everybody else feels strongly, that's fine. We don't always agree.
Right, okay. I was just asking, is it the same policy, though, that it was when it was 3%? So I'm not understanding what the difference is, or why we have so many questions because it's 10% now.
Well, some of the questions came up from the December run-through when Jefferson was doing block scheduling and Washington was not. So I mean,
Okay.
that's where the equitable conversation is coming in now.
Okay.
And we didn't have any data as to how the kids may or may not have done as well. We still don't really have data because some of it may be good data, some of it may not, but that's going to happen with any data, so.
Well, maybe we'll get some better data for the committee to use.
I hope that we can at least keep track of it, because now if they know it's going to impact their grade and we still watch 10% of kids lose out on scholarships or other things, I would at least like to be able to know that that's what happened. I think that's fair.
We certainly have all of the data from the last iteration, and we'll have data from this one, and we can feed every bit of that to the committee, and they can also look at performance around the state. There are high-performing schools who have no semester exams, and there are high-performing schools that have semester exams. I mean, it's like anything else. There's a lot of great tools in education, but at the end of the day, they're only as great as the people who use them, right? So I think with this much advance notice, you have good instructional leaders in the school. They prepare the teachers prepare the kids. They know months ahead of time how much this is worth, and they'll give you their best effort, and there's no excuses. There's no uncertainty. You get a true picture of what the effect of that will be, and then you can make a decision about whether or not you want to continue the practice and in what form.
And that would be one other request I would have, is to make sure that it's communicated immediately to staff and students.
We can certainly send the word out tomorrow. I expect that there may be a few folks on Zoom who are sending the word out tonight as soon as you vote. So we'll make sure it gets to everyone.
I bet there's not a single student watching Zoom right now.
Truth.
It'll be posted all over tomorrow.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to adjust the semester exam policy to 10%. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
next
you.
up we have approval of a general contractor for the new Ranson Elementary School bond project.
Good evening. Prior to your vote, we would like to provide some information about the Ranson Elementary School bids. We're going to start with a presentation from Randy, who will give you a little bit of background information about the climate for bids and our timeline that we've followed to get to the point where we are this evening in requesting that you vote for a general contractor for Ranson Elementary. So I'm going to turn it over briefly to Randy, and I'll join you again.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a short slide presentation to review with you tonight. Once that pulls up, I wanted to quickly review the timeline with you for Ranson. I know it feels like we've been in design for a long, long time. If you can go to the next slide, please. We were fortunate to be informed by the school board in June, the end of June in 2021, that we were hired to do the design for the Ranson and Jefferson projects. Unfortunately, school had already let out, and we did not have an opportunity to meet with students and teachers until the school year started again in September, so that's really when the project began in earnest. We began meeting with students actually on September 16th of 21. We made our first submission to the SBA, the planning phase submission. Not too long after that, about a little over a month later, on October 22nd, we then made our schematic phase submission a few months later again in December 20th of 21. And then in February, we began looking for a geothermal test well driller. We knew that was going to be an issue because part of the problem is some of them went out of business during COVID, and we were just not able to get a lot of interest in it. So we actually hired a consultant to find a geothermal test driller. It's different than just like a domestic well. The whole process is different in how they drill it. So it's a very specialized item. We have to have the test well in order to determine how many wells we need to suit the size of the school and the HVAC system. So it's a requirement that the SBA has. So we made our design development phase submission to the SBA April 6th. CEC is the consultant that we hired. They actually were able to locate a well driller, but they could not get them scheduled because we had to go down 600 feet, and they only had a couple of well drillers that could go that deep. So there's a little bit of delay there. We were scheduled to do our well drilling on July 25th, but the Jefferson County Health Department sanitarian, she's the only one working to do inspections, indicated she could not get to that and that she had 21 days to do so. So there was a delay there. When the sanitarian did go out to the site, she said the grass was too tall, so we had to have Brandon go out there and mow a path so that she could get out there and do her job. The well permits were issued in August of 2022. All the things I have highlighted here were in a email letter to the SBA, and I also copied Ms. White, indicating that our schedule was going to be delayed due to these issues. So the SBA was aware, and they understood the situation we were in. So we had the well drilling start on October 3rd, which was later than anticipated because we lost our slot when the Jefferson County Health Department couldn't get the approvals to us. So we had to wait there. Once we got the testing and analysis completed, that was in November. That was then given to our engineers to do a final determination on number of wells that had to be put out there. And there are 72 wells that will be located out there in the geothermal field. The SBA, that was the last piece of information that the SBA was waiting for. And they gave us our approval immediately thereafter to go to bids on December 14th. So that's kind of a timeline of where we are. And I think the well drilling was probably the biggest delay that we encountered in that whole process. So, do you have any questions on the timeline? Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can certainly get copies of that for you. Ms. White, do you have copies by chance?
Are you ready for other questions? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand why it took so long to go out for bids.
Right.
So can you, I don't think you said that yet.
The reason it took so long to go out for bids is the SBA required all of the geothermal information to be submitted in our construction document phase submission. So although we had submitted it to them in October, until we had all that information, they wouldn't issue the approval letter. So that's the main reason.
You got that in January, correct? Or?
We got the SBA approval in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you went out for bids in December.
We went out for bids in early January because the SBA sets the bid dates. We have to ask them what dates are available, and those were the dates that they gave us.
And so it took a month to get those bids?
Yes, it takes 30 days to advertise and solicit bids. And then we actually extended it 2 weeks because we had contractors say they couldn't get subcontractor pricing. So it was a total of 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on the timeline? So you all have seen the bid results. We have received 3 bids. One was by Dustin Construction. They're a Maryland-based firm. One by Howard Shockey & Sons. They are located in Winchester, Virginia. And one by Waynesboro Construction, who is also a Maryland firm. You can see the spread there. Howard Shockey is the apparent low bidder at $31,059,000. I wanted to include some additional, I guess we'll call them comps or comparables on how things are bidding. The first one I included, because this was bid in February 2021, this is kind of where projects were costing, elementary schools were costing around $294 to $300 square foot. That was kind of our normal, and that's what even what the SBA basically built their budget on. We had a project in Mineral County, Frankfurt Elementary School, that bid in November, and it came in at $362 square foot. was 32% over budget. That is an SBA-funded project, so they went to the SBA and requested additional funding. Hampshire County, they had a project that was bid, I believe it was in November as well, and it came in at $373 a square foot. Both of these projects are minimum standard elementary schools. They meet the minimum standards of policy 6200. They don't have anything additional, so they're about as functional and bare bones as you can get and still meet the policy 6200. I included another one, Goochland County. It's an elementary school there. Rather large elementary school, came in at $435,000. And then Ranson is indicated there, and it came in at $439.97. I included another one from Virginia, Riverheads Middle School, which is in Augusta County, just down 81, a couple hours. That one came in, even though it's middle school, it's still about the size of an elementary school. And that one came in at slightly over 500. The one that probably was most shocking to our firm, ZMM, is Bluewell Elementary School, which is in Mercer County. Again, this is a very, very simple, bare bones, basic elementary school, and it came in at $535 a square foot. This came in the same week that Ranson did, so it's right there with it.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Over here.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
So I thought I was under the understanding that Ranson is over budget as well. Is
Yes.
that right? Because it's
Yes.
not written up there.
Yeah. Ms. White's going to review that with in her
Okay.
next presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then another project that bid the same week is in Kanawha County. That was Cedar Grove, and it was a renovation project. There was a very small addition to it, and it came in 76% over budget. So we are seeing a very large escalation in construction costs, unfortunately, right now. Part of it's due to the ESSER funding that's been out there. We're having a difficult time getting mechanical and electrical subcontractors to bid on projects. Some of the issues are just supply chain issues, not being able to get materials and so forth. And there's still a labor shortage, unfortunately. I don't see that improving anytime soon. We've been trying to follow the trends, and in November, December, the trend had basically flattened out. But now the trend is going back up again. So that's just kind of where we are. Do you all have any questions on this information?
Isn't this a large range of square foot difference? I mean, normally in previous years, back 5 years, 8 years, we wouldn't have a spread this
You
far,
wouldn't,
would
no,
we?
you would not. It would be closer to the $300 a square foot. That's generally what, and the SBA tracks them. The SBA sets their square foot budget number based on historical data, and it was tracking, I think the last number was $306 a square foot.
What surprises me is the range.
Yes.
You're talking about $125 a square
Square foot.
foot range
Yes.
almost in this,
Yes.
and that doesn't seem to be apples to apples.
Yeah. No, and we can't figure out what's happening either. Like I said, the Mercer County project is about as basic of a project as you could have. The last project that was bid, there were 3 projects in Mercer County. The one prior to this bid 2 years ago, and it came in at about $290 a square foot, so it's come in almost double. So.
Are we going to go over the Dustin, Howard, and Waynesboro? They're all comparable, the same materials?
Yes, yes.
So it's strictly, there's no difference?
Correct. Yeah. I'll let Ms. White do her presentation, and if you have any other questions, I'll be right here.
Thank you.
So the next slide we're going to show is the SBA Needs Grants Award. We began this process in November 2020. It began when the voters of Jefferson County generously passed a bond, and that necessitated a need to work with the School Building Authority of West Virginia. This graphic shows the projects that were funded in the same funding cycle, April 19th, 2021. And you can see the counties that were funded. The lowest funded county is Mineral County at 49.5%, meaning, or 49.5%, meaning that the SBA put that much of a percentage into their project. Until you get to Jefferson, and we were funded at 18.77%, which is a testimony to the citizens of Jefferson County, the taxpayers of Jefferson County, and to the good stewardship of the board in buying the property, in gathering all the money that we needed. In addition, we have a perfect blending of funding. We have School Building Authority money, we have local funding, and we have impact fee money. So we've brought a lot of money to the table. So I wanted to show you the funding cycle because this funding cycle, or this bid, will necessitate that we go back to the School Building Authority and request more funds. Our lowest bidder is Howard Shockey and Sons for the construction portion at $31,059,000. That's $11 million over budget. Jason, if you'll show the next thing. I want to give you a budget breakdown with the construction projected costs, along with bid costs and our revenue sources. So with our construction and miscellaneous costs, we projected this building to cost $24,649,972. The Ranson bid costs, the construction cost came in at $31,059,000. We have miscellaneous costs at $2,950,059 for total budgeted costs of $34,009,059. Our revenue sources are listed at the bottom. For bond money, we have $16,417,500. The SBA Needs Grant provided $3,754,334. In impact fees to this project, we have $2,342,537 for a total of revenue of $22,514,370. So we have pathways to building the school and potential options. Next page, Jason. Upon approval of a bid, we would then have the latitude to go back to the School Building Authority and ask for additional funds. Option one is asking the SBA to approve 100% of the shortfall at $11,494,690. Option two has us reducing the scope of the project, and by that, I mean the external scope. If we touch the internal portion, the square footage, we will need a redesign, we will need to go out to rebid. That will cost us some more time, approximately 4 months, to get that done. So that would, if we reduce the scope, that would leave a shortfall of $9,494,689. We would then ask the School Building Authority for an additional 50% of the shortfall and use carryover funds from FY22 in the amount of $497,345, board designated funds of $4 million, and bond interest reserve funds $1,250,000. Option three continues to reduce the scope of the project, the external scope, by $2 million, leaving that remaining overage of $9,494,689. Asking the And I'm sorry, that appears to be a duplicate. So let's skip to option 4, because we're asking for 40% of the original grant award. And using carryover in the amount of $2 million for FY22, FY23 carryover in the amount of $1,742,955, and board designated funds of $3 million, bond interest reserve of $1,250,000. Option 5 continues to reduce the scope, but it presumes that the SBA doesn't give additional funding and talks about revenue sources from local funds only, still reducing the scope of the external parts of the project by $2 million. Using FY carryover of $3 million in 22, FY23 carryover of $2,244,689, board designated funds of $3 million, bond interest and bond reserve funds of $1,250,000. Option 6 would be the option that would require rebidding the project, reducing the scope by $2 million, leaving the same overage. The school is currently 70,000 square feet. We would propose reducing the square footage by 2,300 square feet. That would take the cost down another $1 million. And use FY22 carryover of $2,300,000, FY23 carryover of $1,944,689, board designated funds of $3 million, bond interest and bond reserve fund use of $1,250,000. We have worked with the chief financial officer, and we are to leave 3 to 5% carryover per year. These plans would leave us with 8% carryover if we fund it in this manner. So this evening in a vote, if you're entertaining an approval of the vote, I would be looking for latitude to approve any option, any combination of options down to number 5. Option 6 would mean that would be a no vote and we'd go out to rebid. Do you have any questions about that?
I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Reducing the scope, how does that align with the bond? I mean, we need to make sure that you're not wanting to remove items that are in the bond.
The bond just says we build a new school. In the bond call, it says we build a new school. So that would not interfere with the bond call.
Okay. If we went with number 6, reducing the square footage, I believe that there's a risk for, I believe that the state is considering consolidating, the idea of consolidating the schools, and that was why there was a potential to have the larger square footage. So if you decided to reduce the square footage, I would think that it would be less likely that the state would kick in any money. Is that correct?
The board reduces, there's a consolidation document that you follow. The board would decide to consolidate schools. If we reduced the square footage in this school, some of the things you would take out would be things that the Education Specification Committee found important. We have a STEAM lab in this school, and there's an additional one so that other elementary schools without STEAM labs can travel to use this one.
Yeah.
So removing that and a parent facilitator room would get you the square footage that you need.
Okay.
And there is a risk, yes.
It's just that when we
monetary risk.
We met with the state superintendent. He sounded, from my perception, he explained he seemed to be aware of the possibility of consolidating schools and that he was in favor of helping financially. That was my impression. So this is my concern, that would it still accommodate? When I went back and read, I think it has the ability to accommodate up to 600 It's being built for
For
400?
The school, per the school building authority, and they're meeting their requirements, is being built for 400. It can be expanded in design. We could add on to the design later to expand it to 600 students, but currently it will house 400 students.
So reducing the square footage would still allow it to accommodate the 400?
Yes, ma'am. The cuts we could make would accommodate that.
And your recommendation was which option?
Depending on what the school building authority does, I would prefer an option where they absorb the entire cost, but being a realistic person, I would think that any option, 1 through 5, that we could put together would be acceptable in funding this school. Given that we have another school and a gym to fund, and looking at the total cost and revenue sources, I feel comfortable with any option 1 through 5. Any combination of that, and that will be based on what the school building authority comes back and says they're willing to give us in additional funding.
My other question is about the sale of the property, the thought of selling it for $1 million, but my impression is that real estate prices are coming down now, and so how likely would this, need to be adjusted? Does that, is that not much leeway?
It does not include the sale of properties.
This doesn't?
No, none of the potential options include the sale of properties. Any properties we have, they take time to sell and are occupied by students, and it is a vote by the board. So there is no recommendation in the Ranson School for selling anything. It may be on the backside, a way for the school system and the board to gather some revenue if they vote and decide to sell properties, so you could earn some revenue back after the fact.
Well, I'm just going back to when Miss Carmen Taylor Bratton and I met with you, and this was part of the discussion, a sale of the property for $1 million.
But not for Ranson.
I thought that's what we were discussing, Ranson.
And we discussed Shepherdstown and Washington High.
Okay.
Well, either way, the sale of the property, timing-wise, would not work with building a school and committing to building a school.
Correct.
So what could happen potentially down the road is if we did have a property to sell, we could sell it and then replenish the savings
That's what I'm
accounts that
saying,
we're
yes.
depleting
Yes.
to do this. Gotcha.
Are we discussing Shepherd? We're not discussing that tonight.
We're not discussing
Okay.
it tonight. You can also do lease purchase loans, formerly known as QZAB loans, and these lease purchase loans, your collateral is the equipment in the building. It can include the geothermal field, so that might also be a way, if we have a funding stream to then pay off the loan, it would be another avenue to helping absorb the funding for the school.
I find it very hard to make a decision on this right now because we have no idea what SBA is going to give us. They could give us nothing. They could give us 50%. How do you make a decision when you don't know what kind of money you're getting from the state? And when would we possibly know what we might get from SBA?
Well, Mrs. White, can I ask a quick question?
I believe that, just to answer your question, I believe that the request before the board is for you to give Ms. White permission. You're giving her a start and an end. If you agree to accept the bid tonight, you would say, I want you to start at option number 1 and ask them for everything. Or I don't think that's realistic. I want you to start at option number 2. And then you, in theory, those options are given to you from best case scenario, increasingly to worst case scenario, because they're built on more money from SBA and then less and less and less. So what the request is are you accepting this bid? And if you are, then it's tell me where you want me to start, and I will keep going all the way down the list until I've checked everything off. And then if it's no money from SBA, do we come back to you again and you want to consider bidding it back out? So no, you won't know up front which one of these SBA is going to say yes to. What we don't have time for is for her to come and you guys say, ask them for everything. And we go ask for everything and they say no, and then we come back and 2 weeks later we have another meeting with you and you say, okay, go ask for number 2. So you're saying ask all the way down to this. If there's any of those top 4 or 5 options you don't like, take it out and say, I don't want you to use that option. If you're like, I'm not gonna ask for 2%, that's useless. Take that option out. And then once she's worked through all those options, then we'll get the most money that we can get. And if none of them work to the point that you've given her permission to, we'll come back then, if that makes sense.
Well, I just, personally, you seem to have special meetings often, so I don't think we have to wait 2 weeks necessarily, right? I mean, you could have a
We have
special
till
meeting.
April 10th to accept or reject this bid before
What
we
did
have
you
to
say?
go. We have until April 10th to accept
Mhm.
or reject this bid, and then we have to go out to bid again.
Mhm. How long does it take them to come back with money they're gonna offer? There's no time limit?
Right.
Okay. And have you considered?
I mean, they understand we have until April 10th. They understand it's
Okay.
time-bound.
Have you considered reducing the size to accommodate, because Ranson, right now, there's only 250 students. I'm trying to understand this capacity for 400, and is this that the state projected that it would eventually come back to 400, or is this with the idea that there is a plan to consolidate schools?
The board would make that plan, so I cannot make that plan.
Right, so my question is, have you considered reducing the size to accommodate what we actually need?
Below 400 students, I
Yeah.
do not recommend that you build a school that accommodates less than 400 students. You're not only building for today, you need to build for the future. And there's a lot of potential growth going on in the Ranson area, and I'm quite certain that you can increase the population there.
But that's what I'm asking. Whose calculations are these with the projection of the number of students needed? And the other thing, with this not being in the Ranson district, does that factor in with it being in the T.A. Lowry district? Does that have anything to do with this? Because I understand that either way, you'll have to redistrict students. So how does that play into this, in the size of the school that's needed?
Well, it will factor in order to go through a redistricting process with the board, yes.
My question isn't about the board. It's about the plan or the intention and what the state would consider funding and why. Do they care about the redistricting? Will that play a part in it?
The state has not. The school building authority, based on the data and information we gave them, has agreed that we can build a school for 400 students. And working through processes that are future processes, of course, there's a plan, but tonight we just need to decide on bidding the school. So rather than put the cart before the horse, I feel like we should make that decision. And then, yes, there will be decisions that I'll recommend to the board in future processes that we need to make to move forward to make the school happen. It's a process. So right now in the process, we're just on the bidding portion so that we can start the school, and then we're going to go through other processes as we go along, including decisions such as you've mentioned in order to get to the finish line. But tonight it's about just deciding, do we want to accept a bid or what you would like to do with it?
So right now we're going to choose one of the three, right?
Right now,
bids.
Right now,
So
yes,
we have
I'm
two
asking for
separate
some
issues,
action
actually, right?
on my item.
You want us to vote on this as well, though, correct? You want us to pick one of these options tonight, also choose the the construction company?
I'm looking for a motion.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mrs. White, I'm sorry, could you tell me one more time the name of the company that came in at the 3159? The one that you're recommending? The construction company?
Howard Shockey.
Shockey?
Shockey and Sons, yes.
Okay, so what ideally you're looking for is a motion to accept the bid of Shockey and Sons for the Ranson Elementary School for $31,059,000. And in order to fund it, you're looking for permission to do options 1 through 5, starting with option 1 to get us there.
Correct.
Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
I didn't hear the question. Is there a motion to do what?
A motion to accept the Shockey and Sons bid for $31,059,000, and in order to fund it, for Mrs. White to have the ability to start at option 1 and work her way down through option 5 if needed.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just quickly, with meeting with the state superintendent, who also happens to be on the SBA board, or at least, I don't know if he's a non-vote, I don't know what he is. Anyway,
Voting member.
He's a voting member, so he made a point to say that when we met with him. I think that they are looking at around 40%. So just so you know that that probably will be where the sweet spot is, in my personal opinion. And if they voted to give everybody else almost 50%, we got 18 when we, if you look at those numbers, gave more money than anyone else and brought that to the table. I think just keeping us apprised of what they have decided to do, because I don't think that looks like that's a very fair spread. And I think it's fair for us as a board to be able to look back and even look at how they have funded projects in Berkeley County and others that may have given more previous years, that may have gotten more in previous years than we have gotten for our projects. So I appreciate you doing that, and thank you for the time and effort it took to try to figure this out. And we definitely do not want to be delayed again by another 4 months if we have to go rebid this out. So if we do anything but option 6, we do not have to rebid this project out. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
And if we wait 4 months and go back out to rebid, it may be even more expensive. So,
Well, and I think we're being punished because we bring more money to the table, and that's not equitable.
I know that on behalf of Jefferson County, Dr. Gibson Learn and I will advocate very hard.
Well, I think we also need to advocate to get that state superintendent up here to visit our county, because I don't think that that has been something as well that he has done. It would be, if you're going to say yes or no to giving somebody money, I think it should be a prerequisite that you should have visited there. So maybe that would help in his decision-making. I understand that we are not the rest of the state. I get that. I have family that live in those other areas, and they do not have the same schools that we do.
That's correct.
But there's also a different population that lives here, and most of us work and live, or work and, have monetary income that comes from outside of the state. That's just the way that it is. So there's definitely a different expectation that we have to meet, and that's a fair assessment. So
We're happy to extend an invitation to him.
thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
so the motion on the table, just to be clear with everybody, is to accept the Shockey and Sons bid for $31,059,000 to build Ranson Elementary School and give Mrs. White the ability to start with option 1 and work her way down to option 5, hopefully stopping at option 1. Any other discussion?
When you were discussing this and you said something about something to repeat in option 3, skip it, go to 4.
Yeah, it looked like to me on there, I have to look carefully. All of them are options. They just have option 2 and 3 are very similar, but I think they pull different amounts from different accounts. So they're very similar in nature.
favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, I was still looking, I'm sorry.
At the beginning of the meeting, your happy news of Harper's Ferry being completed would have been even better if you found gold bricks in the ceiling, but I
It would
guess
have
that
been.
didn't happen.
There were
so
none there, and we looked high and low. Everything came out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have action on superintendent search.
I would
And-
like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Banks as the superintendent until we can find a superintendent, and because we don't need to rush. He could be here with Dr. Gibson so he could get adjusted. We could set up a search committee just like we have created these other committees. Citizens could join the search committees. We have 2 positions of recruiters, so these recruiters could put out the ads in all the job sites, the different newspapers. We would have 1 email address that each of the board members would have access to, and we would have all of the resumes sent to each of the board members. We would have a cutoff date of when these resumes need to be received. And like we said tonight, Mr. Buber, we are paying a private investigator already. I believe he's on salary, so he can handle a background check when we get to that point. And the $25,000 that we save, we could help those the women in the cafeteria who sent an email, because they are overworking. They're working as subs, and it sounds like they're not being compensated to the degree that they would like. So, I mean, we are already discussing that we are over budget for this building construction. I think that we should use all the money that we have and not put out $25,000 for something that we could do ourselves. It's not rocket science. If it was, there wouldn't be hundreds of headhunters. So that's my motion.
Okay, just to be clear, I just want to make sure exactly what your motion is. It's to name Mr. David Banks as the new superintendent?
Until we can, we would conduct a thorough search. Mr. Banks would be given, in his contract, the agreement that, should he not be chosen as the permanent superintendent, that he would have his job back as, the deputy superintendent. But I think it's the most logical, reasonable thing to do. We don't need to rush, and it would take a long time if we got somebody by April or May, they would only have a few weeks to train with Dr. Gibson. We have somebody here, he's familiar with everybody, and we don't have to rush. And I believe that Mr. Banks, how do you feel about that?
Okay, well, hang on one second.
I would
Wait.
second that motion. It's on the floor.
Okay, all right. So now we have got a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Banks as the interim superintendent?
If we're allowed to legally call him an interim, I don't know
Okay,
that we
so
are. I mean, that's
there's a
some-
motion and a second to appoint Mr. Banks as superintendent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, I'm not quite sure where to start with that, but one thing to start with is, first of all, Mr. Banks is not eligible to be our superintendent.
Mr. Banks is moving, so that's why I asked to speak with Mr. Banks.
Mr. Banks, we love you. You're great at what you do, but it is our responsibility to do a superintendent search. And coming to the meeting tonight and voting for you to be the superintendent, I don't think that's the right way to go about it.
This
It's
is a
nothing-
temporary. This isn't, then we could
While
have
we're
a chance to do a search.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got a chance because we have a superintendent until June 30th.
Yeah, but you're in a rush. You're in such a rush that you acted beyond the board and you went and got people to meet with us in this emergency session that we weren't prepared for. So we don't need to rush. We have Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks could be the acting superintendent until we find somebody. That would give us enough time to decide. We don't have to rush. If we do our search ourselves, give it a couple of months, it's not going anywhere, then we can say we're willing to spend all this money on somebody else. But
Then we miss contract opportunities because people will sign contracts well before getting ready to start the next school
Well-
year. This is the opportune time, if we're going to do a search for a superintendent, that we would need to do
well,
that. to
maybe
make
he
sure
could
that we
stay a
get
whole
that.
year then until the following year.
And then who would be the curriculum and instruction assistant
We
superintendent?
have so many people working in the board office. I'm sure we can come up with somebody.
And I think that's an insult to Mr. Banks as well, because he
think
does a
that
very
there's
good job.
plenty of people that
and he
would
works very
step up.
hard.
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor. The motion failed.
I don't believe it's time for an interim, or whatever you want to call it, long-term sub for our CEO. We need continuity in the next few years. We're going into a building program, and we're losing an executive secretary as well. So I make a motion that we hire McPherson and Jacobson for our search firm for a new superintendent.
And is
we
this-
enter in, excuse me, I'm making a motion
I
at
didn't
this
hear-
time.
I'm trying to hear what you said.
I'm making a motion that we get in a contract with McPherson and Jacobson, who presented to us by Zoom for our contract for our superintendent search.
Are you okay?
Is there a second?
I couldn't hear you.
Is there a second to hire McPherson and Jacobson for the superintendent search?
Second.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to hire McPherson and Jacobson. All in favor, say, or any discussion?
Yeah. First of all, I believe that we should put a call out. You shouldn't be the person hand-selecting people to present to us. I mean, that was completely inappropriate. So we are, constantly being accused of not being transparent. And that's exactly what happened the last time we met. You had these people arranged. At least 2 of them we know that you have a background with. I don't know which one was McPherson. I don't know if that's somebody that you have a history with as well, but that's not appropriate. It's not transparent. So if we decide that we want to go with one of these recruiting agencies or headhunters, then we should decide that we will do a request for them. We would look more extensively for the ones that we would like, not just the 3 that you've picked.
Well, just to let you know, the 3 that we picked, one of them, Mr. Howard O'Cole, has withdrawn his proposal because he does not feel he could work effectively with some of our board members. The other one is one that we had worked with in the past, and this is one that we have not worked with. I do not have a history with them. I'm not sure what you're accusing me of, but any other discussion about using McPherson and Jacobson as a search firm?
Yeah, I think it's inappropriate, the way that this is handled, and we should at least put it out there to invite people to present open bid instead of doing it backwards.
We're not doing it backwards.
No,
And
you
what
already
you're
did it
propo-
backwards.
What you're proposing.
Before the board even agreed, we didn't even agree to find a headhunter. That was something that you decided. You show up at a meeting, we're supposed to be discussing how we are going to find the next superintendent, and instead there's an emergency executive session where you've you've invited people in. And there was no justification for the executive session. I mean, because if they're on Zoom, how can they hear anybody else's offer? Plus, they were all in writing anyway.
We did not have them all in writing ahead of time. None of that makes any difference right now. Right now, we need to
No,
move forward.
It does make a
We need to
difference
hire-
because it's more evidence of the lack of transparency and the reason that we are, or I'm requesting that we not rush to grab up one of these people that you've recruited or contacted. I mean, I'm left to believe that we are going to have a limited pool based on your preferences.
Dr. Joy, my preference is to hire a professional to do this because this is over a $100 million organization. We are looking for our new superintendent or CEO. You don't just wait for somebody to come apply. You don't post it and put an ad in the newspaper and hope somebody applies. This is their professional job. This is their wheelhouse. This is what they do. They find superintendents and match them to communities. Now, it's more than just finding a superintendent. It's meeting with our community. It's having focus groups in our community. It's finding out what our community wants in a superintendent. It's not just posting it and having them email the board their resumes and having our person do a background check. It's a lot more complex than that.
Miss Carmen Taylor Bratton she has been in the field for over 30 years. She hires thousands of people. I mean,
Don't hire people. Don't put me out there. I do not hire people. I've worked in the HR sector for many years. But my question would be, while we're looking for a superintendent, because you just said the same way that you all went about a CFO, it wasn't appropriate to go about a CFO the same way it's not appropriate to go about a CEO. So would we be able to look for, nationally, look for a CFO and a CEO? That would be my question. Because either way, they're dealing with millions and millions of dollars, right? So both of them should be a national search, and we could possibly do it at the same time.
Well, and I understand that, and from what I understand is that we did do a very broad search for a very long time for a CFO.
But
and
how
we're
did you
still
do it?
doing
Did you do it, did you have a company that did it, or did our HR people that Dr. Joy is referring to, that they do that? Because it's the same search, basically. The
It's not
difference
really the
is
same
one
search
needs
because
accounting and one doesn't.
It's not exactly the same because of the fact that a CFO comes in and they're doing your financials. A CEO is the leader of your organization, and I understand you haven't been
CFO
through-
leads your organization with the money that is spent. They are the ones that sign it. Yes, it is basically very close. They work together. It's very close to being the same.
I understand that, but you don't have community focus groups on what you're looking for in a CFO. This is an entire process, and I'm hoping that, you've read the information that was provided by the search firms, and you understand everything that they're going to be doing, and, maybe you'll see the benefit to it at some point. But I think that this is a very wise way to go about it and not try to do this ourselves in a homemade way.
Madam
it's
President,
not-
I'd like
it
to
may be
call the
homemade,
action. I have
but
a
it's
motion on the floor.
systematic.
I'd like you to call for a vote.
Okay, so the motion on the floor right now is to hire McPherson and Jacobson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Oppose.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, we have 13A, action on approval to cancel the April 10th, 2023 regular board meeting due to spring break. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Second.
Is there a second? Ms. Bratton, thank you. All right, any question or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of canceling the April 10th, 2023 regular board meeting due to spring break, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Board member comments and committee reports. Ms. Bratton?
Thank you. I want to congratulate Wildwood Middle School boys and girls basketball teams. They are both our MAC champions for this year. Excuse me. Also, let me stick with sports. Also, we had our cheerleaders who were at the Bulldog Cheer Plaza, and the results, I'm just going to read Jefferson County's. Our middle school, small division, technical, third place was Charlestown Middle School. Large division, high school technical, Jefferson took first place. High school technical, again, Jefferson took first place. High school open routine, Jefferson took second place. High school sideline division, Jefferson took second place. And our high school stunt division, Jefferson took second place with Hurricane from Jefferson. We also had our wrestlers that were in Charleston over the weekend. Jaden Fort took 7th place. He was 4-2 on the weekend. I would like to give a Black History fact for our county. Kip Carr, who graduated in 1986 with myself. Kip Carr was the only African-American member and co-captain of Jefferson High School's first academic team, which helped lead the team to its first championship in the Eastern Panhandle Academic Competition of Excellence with a 7-1 record. I would like to still congratulate him on that. And then also very proud of our students that we honored today. But we also had Harpers Ferry Middle School, who also competed on February 25th. And the middle school honor jazz band, and they're being selected as an honor band, and that means a lot as well. That band was honored in 2009, 2016, 2018, and now in 2023. Congratulations on that. Also, I was able to go to Ranson Elementary School and actually participate in their program that they had. It was called Living History Museum Career Fair. It was on the morning of the 17th, so that was very interesting. I was able to present to our K through 5th grade students, as well as I went to North Jefferson and I listened to Tom Rod give a presentation on J.R. Clifford, who was the first, in West Virginia, our first Black lawyer. Mr. Clifford went to Storr College in Harpers Ferry and lived in Martinsburg. And also, we would like to thank, I thought this was so sweet, many thanks to Jefferson High School FFA members, Hunter Hours, Hannah Good, Brady Marnock, and Matthew Shafir for delivering treats to the central office staff in celebration of FFA Week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
We had an epic meeting this past week. Things are going fairly smoothly with Epic. We had a few part-time employees hired, but that was about all of the hiring that is going on with that. I'd like to congratulate Janet Harner. She was honored by her professional organization of executive secretaries at the state meeting. And she received several keepsakes from that organization. She is truly deserving. She is one of the 4 original people that started that organization on the state level. So, Janet, we commend you.
Mrs. Ogden?
And I'd just add to that one of the awards that she received, she'll probably kill me for telling everyone this, but it was very exciting. It's called the Janet Harner Executive Secretary Award, and into perpetuity, it will be given once a year to the Executive Secretary of the Year in the state of West Virginia, and it will always be called the Janet Harner Executive Secretary Award in honor of her. And I thought it was a wonderful way to honor her for all that she's done over the years and getting that organization started, and the way that she's kept that going, and it was really neat to see. So congratulations to you. I would just say thank you to the Jefferson ROTC, who actually helped volunteer for the jazz festival that they had at the high school. So it's always nice to have all the extra hands of staff and students who are willing to pitch in and help whenever needed.
Thank you. Dr. Joy?
Well, Carmen took all my, half of them. I still have some, but I don't want to repeat what everybody else has already said. So I have, let's see, well, Bus Driver Appreciation Day was last week. So I wanted to recognize our bus drivers and let them know how much I appreciate them. Let's see, the Washington High School ladies basketball are the sectional champs. And let's see, Jaden Yates from Charlestown was named first team All-MAC. Heather Foible was recognized in the Journal for her work with the CTE coding classes. She's a teacher here at Washington. Hope Jessel, she has an academic and sports commitment to West Liberty University. And there are 3 students at South Jefferson who were recognized this past week. Hattie Lafferty, she made good choices in her class. Evan Henshaw, he helped out when the sub was there. Douglas Hare received a positive principal referral for being a great friend and setting an example for others. And I don't know if it was stated clearly, or I just wanted to make sure that the Harpers Ferry Middle School, they earned top jazz band and honor band, as well as Shepherdstown Middle. They received Superior in the Eastern Regional Jazz Festival. I think that's all.
Thank you. Just a report from the Jefferson County Development Authority. The Executive Director, Dennis Jarvis, has resigned, and there will be a search proceeding from that. And as Dr. Joy mentioned, February 22nd was National Bus Driver Appreciation Day. And also thank you to all the staff for putting all those signs out, because those were pretty awesome for everybody to see. All right. Madam Superintendent, do you have any comments this evening?
Can we give Ms. Harner a hand?
I'm sorry? Oh. We've got plenty of time with her still. We're not saying goodbye tonight. And now we have an executive session with two personnel actions with action, if I'm correct. Is that?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. All in favor of going to executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.